Who are the 9 best comeback candidates in fantasy football in 2023? We break it down right here and right now as we begin another week and another edition of Locked On Fantasy Football.
Are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. We've started a series of top 9 lists because 9 is my favorite number, and we're going to do that. It works out nicely for 3-segment shows. We break things down 3 at a time for you. We don't know what we're going to get with the slot machine, but today we're pulling up the 9 comeback candidates to watch most in fantasy football in 2023. This could have been because of disappointing performance last season, could have been because of injuries, just like the NFL Comeback Player of the Year award is awarded there. And just looking at why these players might rebound and finish as potential starters. So these are all players, because of their adversity last season, finished well out of starting range. So QB out of the top 12 didn't make it there. We look at the running backs out of the top 24 and wide receivers out of the top 36. So that's our way we're looking at it. They have to have disappointed in relation to their potential production last year. So loosely, those are the parameters. I will get into those 9 players here in a moment. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. Subscribe and follow for free wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. All right, let's dive right in. We're going to count down to the top here. So we'll start at number 9 on my list. Courtland Sutton of the Broncos, the top wide receiver on that team. We'll see how it plays out with him and Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick, and now Marvin Mims, the rookie out of Oklahoma. But Mims, I think, is going to be a specific package big play guy that they get when they spread the field. So you don't see a threat there. I think they could also look at Mims as a guy to replace Jerry Jeudy, who they've not picked up the option on for next year. So I think this new offense, so it's Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi, they're going to go maybe that direction, maybe look at Mims to take over Jeudy. Keep in mind, they gave Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick contract extensions already. So they like Patrick a lot playing on the outside. I think they might like Mims a little bit more as a dedicated big play slot there over Jeudy playing off Courtland Sutton. But Sutton is still the number one. We heard last year that you had a lot of good chemistry between him and Russell Wilson. They were pushing the ball downfield. I think getting Garrett Bowles back at left tackle is also going to help because they'll buy time to push the ball downfield. And they take deep shots, right? This is what this offense is about. You go back to the Saints days with Robert Meacham and Devery Henderson, those guys that can take tops off defenses and take those shots off the running game. So I think you'll see that a lot. And Courtland Sutton, again, a little bit of a hybrid of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, 2 guys that had success with Joe Lombardi there in Los Angeles with the Chargers in the same division. So last year, we know that Sutton and Wilson were on the same page. It just didn't happen in the offense together. Sutton has had some injury issues as well, but he finished as a wide receiver 41 last year. So that was a very disappointing finish. I mean, I thought he could at least crack into wide receiver 3 territory here just by pure volume alone. That didn't happen as the Broncos passing game overall with Wilson was disastrous in one season under Nathaniel Hackett. So Sutton, again, too talented. If he can stay on the field, and we know that is going to be a concern with all these guys and not just the comeback candidates, but anyone we look in fantasy football. So we got to take that with a grain of salt here. But Sutton is a plus talent. He's got the size, speed to make big plays, score touchdowns. He just hasn't been able to tap into it. Part of it is Sutton just not being available, but watch out, folks, that he could rebound big time here in this offense that favors more of a skill set, especially if they start to fade Jeudy in relation to Patrick, and Sutton really separates himself a little bit more as the number 1 target. And I think you'll also see less force action to the tight end. I know They did go pick up Adam Troutman, but now they have a collection of kind of athletic tight ends, but Sutton's going to be helped by those guys as well. So size, speed, everything says that Sutton should have broken out big time by now. He's flashed a little bit in fantasy, but I think this year the Broncos will know much better what to do with him and get him in that offense involved as Wilson's number one target. All right, we go from him to Deontay Johnson. Yeah, he was really disappointing last year. He ran a lot of great routes there for the Steelers, caught passes, but well down in scoring. Part of it is a quarterback issue between Mitchell Trubisky and rookie Kenny Pickett. They also didn't open things up enough in the offense. Deontay Johnson, I think, is going to see that expanded role, running all the route tree inside and outside here. And I think they regret not establishing himself as the number one. There's not a lot of balls, right? You have Pat Freiermuth at tight end. You have George Pickens. He's more of a big play type guy that can go inside or outside there. So not too many guys in this passing game that are going to be trusted in year two with Kenny Pickett for Matt Canada. So you definitely look at Deontay Johnson. He's just too good of a receiver. He got the contract extension. He looks the part of a number one with the way he can run. His hands, again, crisp routes, getting open, good volume type receiver. So if you're looking for that stretch the field kind of ceiling with some touchdowns and big plays, I think you go with Sutton. If you're looking for a higher floor, much higher floor than you got last year, just based on the consistency and availability and just making plays all over the field, now with a dedicated full-time quarterback in Pickett from the get-go, I think you'll see that from Deontay Johnson. So he comes in at number 8 among the comeback candidates that I have on my list. Now, that's it for wide receivers, because a lot of wide receivers actually live up to expectations. Is why it's one of the better positions to draft in fantasy there, because there's some injuries, of course, but I think you can navigate through them a little bit better than the other places, and really you don't have as much volatility. If you think a guy's going to be up there as a wide receiver 1, worst you'll see him as maybe dip into wide receiver 2, but you don't see some all-out busts, and these are why Sutton and Johnson are the only ones on our list. Now, number 7 is the first of 4 running backs. That is A.J. Dillon. They want to get him more involved. Aaron Jones has got the contract, but Dillon is also playing for his own contract. Will the Packers opt to keep him and move away from Jones? Dillon has to produce well, and I think they'll lean a lot on the running game with Jones and Dillon, with Jordan Love taking over at quarterback for the first time. So they have some playmakers, obviously, with the rookie tight ends, including Luke Musgrave. They also have the young receivers they can look at, including Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. But when you look at A.J. Dillon, he's a hammer. That's what they want to do, run the ball better. He's shown underrated receiving skills. He's a good closer in the red zone. And that's what it comes down to. How many opportunities is he going to get to score? I think you might see him punch a few more in with Jordan Love throwing on other parts of the field, unlike Aaron Rodgers with a short TD. So something to watch out as well for. But Dillon, too good, too well-rounded of a back, especially working in an offense where him and Jones are going to be featured prominently with a young starting quarterback. I think it bodes really well for his chances to produce. So A.J. Dillon, I think, rebounds. He was a pretty solid RB2 the year before. Last year really dropped off into deep RB3 territory. So big chance for A.J. Dillon now. Again, working for a contract. If it's not in Green Bay, it can be elsewhere. But playing well is going to be important. We saw it with Tony Pollard, right? We were waiting on him and break free a little bit from Ezekiel Elliott. Well, injuries happened there. He was still a strong change of pace, and Pollard absolutely exploded. So Dillon has that potential to follow that parallel here in 2023. All right, there's a look at 3 players, comeback candidates, number 9 through 7. We'll get 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 over the next 2 segments here on the show. We told you at the top, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Yes, it's a great time to get in on FanDuel and the sportsbook action, because it is nearly the NBA Finals, so we don't have too many games left, because the Nuggets are up 3-0 on the Lakers. The Heat are up 3-0 on the Celtics. So, yeah, get in on the action before it's too late on the NBA, because the Finals are going to be here June 1st, just around the corner. So that's why you need to go FanDuel, because taking a face plant is tough, but you got to rebound and make a fast break to FanDuel to redeem yourself in the NBA playoffs, because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. So great news there. I love what you can do on FanDuel. Safe and secure app, so you don't need to worry about that. You can get paid instantly once you put in your winning wagers. And then they have great promotions. Check out the single game parlays, the things that they put together with the game. So they do a great job there to help you construct your bet. So love that on FanDuel. And again, super easy to use. on the go here where gambling is legal for you, where you can get that app and do it. So good stuff for sure. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. That is FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Get no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, it is time to continue the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football. We're counting down the top 9 comeback candidates for fantasy football in 2023. Number 9, Courtland Sutton, wide receiver Broncos. Number 8 was Deontay Johnson, wide receiver Steelers. Number 7, the first of multiple running backs on this list, A.J. Dillon of the Packers. All right, let's go to number 6, Antonio Gibson of the Commanders. So staying in the backfield again, we have 3 more backs to talk about, and hint, we have 3 quarterbacks as well. So we'll mention all of those here in our final 2 segments, but Gibson has to be mentioned. They want to reestablish him as a key all-round weapon in this new offense with the former running back Eric Bieniemy. We know he has a good skill set to some of the backs that they had in Kansas City. So I see Brian Robinson Jr. being faded a little bit as the power back, and Gibson kind of reestablishing himself because of that pass-catching ability. We know Ron Rivera has wanted to untap his poor man's Christian McCaffrey skills for a while as a receiver, hybrid and crossover receiver running back here. So Gibson can get that opportunity to reestablish himself. I think they used him poorly last year, put in Robinson on opportune times. Remember that Bears game where they wanted to get Robinson going after his shooting and the things that went on for him as a rookie early before he could get on the field. So I think there was a bit of sentimental feelings here toward him. Gibson now, however, is the better player. You don't have Scott Turner, who may have favored what Brian Robinson Jr. could do. Now you have a Bieniemy who's going to value more Gibson's skill set with the pass catching. So I really like it, half-point PPR, to go after Antonio Gibson. Full-point PPR, you like him even more than that, because I think he's going to be a key part of this offense, especially with Sam Howell at quarterback for the Commanders. He's going to have to dump off and throw to somebody. Gibson should be busy with volume out of this backfield. The number 5 player that's primed for a comeback is Cam Akers. He's set up really nicely in this Rams offense. They need to revamp their offensive line. They're continuing to do that. Passing game, however, a little bit in flux. They hope Cooper Kupp can stay healthy as well as Matthew Stafford, but they've lost Allen Robinson. We know they don't have Robert Woods anymore. They're trying to figure out what they can get out of Van Jefferson and Ben Skoranek at receiver. So I think they'll lean a lot on Akers. He's a good pass catcher as well, and that's an important part, that he can be featured back. And they don't have a lot behind him. They have Kyron Williams and Zach Evans. So you have a young player that they were high on but faded a little bit, and a rookie straight up there. So watch for Cam Akers having a key role. It's Sean McVay coming back, bread and butter. That's what they're going to do. So when he's not running and the Rams may not be playing with as many leads, I think he'll be involved as a receiver and also be a good effective runner to close out drives with touchdowns. So we have Cam Akers at number 5. At number 4 is Lamar Jackson. Lamar had a rough go of it last year, finished outside of the QB1s, had the injury issues, had to be replaced there in the middle for a while with Tyler Huntley playing pretty well here. But Lamar Jackson, this Todd Monken offense, I know it's been overhyped a little bit. We talked a little bit about it on Friday when we ranked the coordinators with biggest impact. It was right there behind what they have with the Chargers and Kellen Moore. But looking at Lamar right now, I mean, I think this is great for him. You have Odell Beckham Jr., you've a very good offensive line with young anchor Tyler Linderbaum there. Just all over the field, you can make plays, and just the array of weaponry for Jackson is much different. The aggressiveness that you have throwing downfield, playing off the running game, which is great for both because Jackson has a strong arm to push the ball downfield. And then you have running backs to play off J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and those young backs. So it's really good news for Lamar Jackson. I think he could easily finish as the top scorer in fantasy again, ahead of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. It's worth trying to find out, right? If he falls short of that goal and he's still a pretty solid QB1 there, you're going to be thrilled with that. So Lamar Jackson is number 4. I just think he's going to put it all together. This offense really tailored to him. They're going to bring out some new things that he can do better, like flick of the wrist and throwing downfield. So I'm not saying you're going to have a Michael Vick type prime season on the field here, but Lamar Jackson definitely could have shades of his former MVP self here that come back with durability in the mix. All right, there you have it. There's a look at now the players 6 through 4 in our best comeback candidates for fantasy football in 2023. We'll close the show looking at one more running back and two quarterbacks as well. The top two on the board here for these lists on today's show. We'll have that in our final segment. Again, subscribe and follow for free wherever you get your podcast. We're part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks again for being an everydayer. If you're checking out our show every day, that's what we call you. Visiting and watching and listening to the show all the time. We really appreciate you. Special shout out there. However, you're consuming Locked On Fantasy Football. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Number 4 is Jonathan Taylor. Look, it's just a matter of staying healthy, but also being used carefully by the Colts. I think they've run it around a little bit. Now you have Anthony Richardson, a running type quarterback. We know that can rejuvenate and revive and push a running back of Taylor's ilk. I think it'll be a good combination, Richardson and Taylor. The offensive line, they're hoping for better things there up front. They could also open up the passing game a little bit to create those running lanes. So Jonathan Taylor was healthy. Everything was going to be fine last year. But I think there were reasons why he wasn't healthy. They were leaning too much on him, coming off the big volume the year before. They liked the offensive line, which was getting a little long of the tooth and needed some replacing, and kind of inflated how good they could be in the running game, and really made Jonathan Taylor pay the price there. So a guy that they'll be careful with and maybe less touches, but actually could be way more effective here now, fully healthy than he was prior to last season. All right, let's go to number 2. He is Dak Prescott. Rain Dakota Prescott comes in there. Yeah, Prescott was very disappointing last year. I think you look at this Brian Schottenheimer offense, he was on the staff there with Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy last year. I think you'll see more of them play to their strengths and maybe go not conservative here, but I think you'll see them more rhythmic passing, trying to throw in the red zone. Dak uses legs a little bit more, playing off Tony Pollard and Malik Davis and the others in the running game. So Prescott, again, this is a small hiccup in his career to have that type of struggle. He's not that type of quarterback. He's been very efficient and put up the numbers here. So number 2 on the list is definitely Dak Prescott there. They're looking at, because I think, again, a whispering type offense, a decent weaponry now, even without Amari Cooper long gone there. I mean, I think they're feeling a little bit more confident about the other receivers. Dalton Schultz can be replaced by these tight ends by committee, but definitely feeling that here, where you're looking at Dak Prescott, great position to rebound after finishing well out of the QB1s last year. And finally, Russell Wilson, he actually finished as QB16, so he wasn't too far off from QB1 status, but he was the lowest of the low here, and we wanted to go with him as the number 1. I mean, it was really rough to have Russell Wilson. You thought, okay, set it, forget it. I mean, that's what it was in Seattle, right? You could get that middle of the road production from him, and you were good. You were golden here with one Russell Wilson. But now, if you drafted him, just there's depth and we can be safe. That wasn't good. That wasn't good at all, because now he's struggling to find a spot to play in. So really tough there to be as effective. But you have Sean Payton, again, Joe Lombardi. They're going to get the ball out of his hands quickly. They're going to help him kind of refocus, also cater to him a little bit and coddle. That's going to happen. So that's also good news there with Sean Payton, that they're going to play to his strengths. They're not going to get into a philosophical argument with Wilson. They're going to work together to see what's best. And I think, quite frankly, Payton and Lombardi are just a little bit better than what they had with Nathaniel Hackett, who's better off there with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. So sometimes it's having the right brain trust of people. We know that Payton and Lombardi have long history. Drew Brees, another short, undersized quarterback there that had some trouble seeing over, but they got him to play at the highest level and dominate as a Hall of Famer. So this is actually a great move for Russ Wilson. I think he's still a Hall of Famer. He has to get back on track here after his first losing season, and then outside of Seattle as well. So all that refocus on the field, and you'll see Russ be rejuvenated to produce. So I do feel strongly about that again, Wilson, there's no way to go but up, and I think he'll hit up this year and less dysfunction. I mean, it's hard for us to believe knowing what we knew about Nathaniel Hackett, but things change so quickly in the league and all around the NFL that I think you'll see this happen with Russell Wilson. So he's going to have a decent season. It's not going to be spectacular. It's going to blow the doors off, but if you can run a little bit, throw a few touchdowns, push for that 30 TD mark, you're in business here. So that's why Russell Wilson ranks number 1 on our list of comeback candidates. So going back, Courtland Sutton, you have Wilson's wide receiver in Denver at number 9. Deontay Johnson, wide receiver Steelers at 8. A.J. Dillon, running back Packers at 7. You have Antonio Gibson, running back Commanders at 5. Cam Akers, running back Rams at 4. You have Lamar Jackson coming in at 4. right behind with Cam Akers. Then you have Jonathan Taylor and that big injury from last year's first injury of his career, going back to early high school, all that stuff. So he'll come back strong. That was more of an anomalous breakdown here for him. Then Dak Prescott, number 2, and Russell Wilson, number 1. So there you have it. That is your look at, again, the 9 most likely comeback candidates for fantasy football in 2023. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first Sunday. Subscribe and follow for free wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For Vinnie Iyer, for myself, that's me. Thanks for watching and listening to Locked On Fantasy Football. We'll come back tomorrow with we get players that are downward headed here. So we'll do that on tomorrow's show. So every day, stick with us. We'll have something new, exciting, advanced scouting for fantasy football as we count down to break down all the teams here as training camp starts in 2023. So check us out. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll be back with the candidates likely to have the biggest drop-off in 2023.